will call to order the City of Hammond Board of Public Works and Safety meeting of January 16th, 2014. Roll call. Here. Here. Item 4, approval of the minutes of the meetings of January 2nd and 9th.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item A, we have a bid opening for the demolition of several properties. We have 5 bids.
First bid is from Acton Contracting LLC, P.O. Box 518, East Chicago, Indiana. They have their Form 96, and they have their non-inclusion affidavit signed. Their bid for all the properties is $240,745. This one doesn't have all the information on the cover. Yeah, but it doesn't have an address or something, it just says RSR Demolition. They don't have a Form 96. They don't have a non-collusion affidavit. It is RSR Demolition 1370 Joliet. I don't think this is an acceptable bid. You want me to read it just for purposes, and we'll decide later, because it doesn't have any of the backup information. Doesn't have a non-inclusion affidavit, doesn't have a 96. Their bid is $257,380. Next bid is from Gary Material Supply, 7318 West 15th Avenue, Gary, Indiana. They have their Form 96. And they have their non-inclusion affidavit signed. Their bid is $248,000. Next bid is from JM Industrial Services Incorporated, 201 Marble Street, Hammond, Indiana. They have their Form 96 and their non-inclusion affidavit signed. Their bid for all the properties is $193,850. The last bid is from KLF Enterprises, 2300 West 167th Street, Markham, Illinois. They have their Form 96, and they have their non-inclusion affidavit signed. Their bid is $337,700. I'd like to refer these to code enforcement for tabulation and recommendation.
All in favor? Aye, motion carries. Item B, we have an agreement with Engineering Services for platting at 649 to 651 Conkey from Tarenga Engineering.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye, motion carries. Item C, we have a request for advertising dates for the bidding of recycled waste in the city of Hammond.
I'd like to make a motion that we set those bid dates for
January 23rd and 30th,
the bid opening on.
February 13th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, motion carries. Item D, we have correspondence from Chief Miller requesting the promotions of Officer Chavez, Clark, Onahan, Herrera, Garrison, and Mickey. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We also have correspondence from Chief Miller requesting approval of disciplinary action and approval of specialty pay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve those. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item E, we have correspondence from Chief Smith requesting the approval of firefighters Marks, Brzezinski, Repay, Howerton, Brooks, Blythe, Seaman, Hoover, and Sanders. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have correspondence from Chief Smith requesting the approval of purchasing agents for the Hammond Fire Department. Is there a motion to approve the listing agents?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item F, we have a hearing on Estrella Sports Bar. We have correspondence from Attorney Cantrell indicating that he is counsel on behalf of Estrella's and is in jury trial this week, and he's listed the cause number. Is there a motion to continue this?
So move, and we can move it to March 14th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item G, a hearing at 5664 Walter. Any interested parties for 5664 Walter, please come forward.
Hey, we're here. We have a 4-unit building that we are asking to convert back to a 2-unit apartment building.
Okay, and I have with me here,
Can you let her talk?
I'm here on behalf of Prue Properties, Walter LLC, and I'd like to call up Jocelyn Prue and Thomas Prue. The Prues are here with me. The Prues originally owned, the Prues got the property in 2011, and they transferred it to Prue Properties, Walter LLC, for the property located at 5664 Walter, which is also known as 613 Walter in Hammond. Thomas and Jocelyn Prue, who are standing behind me, are members of the LLC that I'll refer to as Prue Properties for short. It's the contention of my client that Prue Properties was either built as a conforming use or that it has otherwise become a valid conforming use. More simply, the building was either always a 4-unit or all necessary work was done to ensure the property was in compliance with all applicable zoning and building codes to be a conforming 4-unit property.
If the board wishes, I can explain why that's all not true.
Well, you'll have your opportunity to do so.
It's our contention that under Section 2620 of the Hammond zoning ordinance, that the issuance of the prior building permits demonstrates that the building was a valid conforming use or that it has otherwise become a valid conforming use. There were several permits that have been issued on this property, including a remodel in 1950, in which is well before a lot of the Hammond Municipal Code provisions that the notice of violation is under came into effect. The remodel in 1950 indicates that it was to convert the property to an ice cream parlor. There are also records that were provided to me by the city that show the way this property was set up as a 4-unit building. I literally have floor plans that demonstrate this. And the city has also come out to the property before. Specifically, my client had to obtain a permit for heating. Inspector Homer Smith came out and examined the property. There were several permits that were issued to reconnect the electrical and to reconnect gas and water. Currently, there are no plans to repair or remove the 4-unit property because it is our contention that it's consistently been a 4-unit, and the multiple units are reflected in the records of the Lake County Auditor, the assessor, and even the building department itself. It is our position that the City of Hammond should withdraw the notice of violations and should not order demolition nor repair, but that a decision should be rendered in favor of Prue Properties with respect to the property at 5664 Walter. And next, I'd like to call some witnesses.
Matthew?
If you don't mind, could I present the city's case? Go ahead. Thank you.
We haven't completed with our case. I believe it's our right to go first and present our
You don't even know
case.
what we're arguing.
Okay, well, let's hear some sort of opening introduction from you then. And then I want to reserve the right to call my witnesses. I am entitled to do that, as you well know.
That's correct, and I allowed you to give an opening statement. Is it okay if we hear the building department side of their
Oh, yes.
argument? Because we don't understand why you're even here yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have some of the file in front of you now, others we'll get later on. Basically, we did the inspection back in August 6, 2013. We found the building to be in violation. November 19th, that was another property, November 19th. We have entered a 4-unit building. There's no fire separation between the first floor and second floor units. That's found in the order or notice of violation under IRC 317.1. 1-hour fire separation is required. That would be, for example, 5/8 inch drywall. Also, there were no permits to convert this building to a 4-unit, which I'll get into in depth in a minute here. Also, the property has only 1 electric meter and 1 gas meter for a 4-unit building, as currently stands. The property was permitted and built to code, properly permitted and built to code. There would be 5 meters, 5 gas, 5 electric, 1 for each unit, and 1 public. You can see by the pictures there that there is there's 1 meter operating a whole entire building, 4 units. And you also see no fire separation, and not just a breach, but no fire separation. You see the joists under the drop ceiling. In 1920, this was built as 842 Walter. For the assessor, it's a 2-story frame building. Building code at that time, for the most part, for a multi-unit building would have been built of brick. This is the frame structure.
Do you have copies of those for me?
You have everything that I...
Could you advise me what you've handed to the board, please?
All the copies of the building permits.
Does
from
that
the
include the
electrical-
logbook records?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. The assessor has this building built in 1920 as a 2-story frame. Keep that in mind. 1924, we have a permit under 842 Walter to build. It says GA, we understand it to be a garage. 1950, remodeled building into an ice cream parlor. 1953, reside residence. Something happened between 1950 and 53 that went from an ice cream parlor to a residence. Nowhere does it say multi-unit building. 1974, installed rear stairs and doors. 1975, installed drywall. 1980, repair fire damage. Perhaps lack of fire separation has something to do with that. 1984, Reedside House. Not an apartment building, not a 2-unit, not a 3-unit, but a house. 1984, another permit to rebuild a porch. In 1993, a building permit to build a porch. Now, you also have in front of you electric permits, building permits for the corresponding years of the building actions. Other than 1974, there is an electric permit that you can consider it along with the drywall project. They go together. However, if it was done correctly to convert that building into a multi-unit, it would be more than 1 meter, as there is today. It would be 5. Now, it is true we did reconnect for water and gas. Mr. Smith, make sure it's okay to turn on water and gas. He does not inspect code of the property itself. There's no plumbing permits along with the drywall project in 1974, electric permit 1975.
Wasn't there a heating/plumbing permit in 1980?
I'm talking about 1974, 1975 right now, okay? There was no plumbing permit. So if the drywall was conceivably part of the addition of multi-units, there would have been a plumbing permit to run plumbing between 4 units. Keep in mind, this was an ice cream parlor. 1980, there was a fire. Building permit to repair fire damage. There is a heating permit in 1980, probably because the furnace, I can deduce, was the source of the fire. It had to be replaced for the house, not a multi-unit building.
Boiler, right?
I would assume.
Because they saw a
There's
radiator. in one of
pictures
the
of
pictures.
a radiator, so yeah.
Now, I'm presenting to you which council has here, county information, water information. It shows it's built as a 2-story frame. There's also some other county information here that the council has as well that shows in 1950 it was built as an ice cream parlor with a 2nd floor apartment, which is common practice, business down below, owners living upstairs as one apartment. Yes, it's true the county did at one time count 4 apartments, because that's what they do. They count bathrooms, they count bedrooms, they count units. They don't count if it's code or not. But nowhere is there a permit that says the ice cream parlor in a 1-unit building upstairs ever should have been turned into a 4-unit building.
What year did it get converted from a commercial building into a residential building?
The records of the city actually still reflect that it's a commercial building. The assessor's parcel card still, to this day, shows commercial, whereas typically it would show residential. It's also listed,
Buildings treated at the 3% tax?
the building is treated at, from what I understand, a 2% tax rate because it's being treated for tax purposes as a residential non-owner occupied residence.
Matt, does that conclude your, the evidence you wish to relay to the board?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to examine Mr. Thomas Prue. I have someone swear him in, please?
Approve, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay, could you state your full name, please?
Thomas George Prue III.
And what is your relation to Prue Properties Walter LLC?
I am an owner/member.
Okay. When did you purchase the property at 5664 Walter?
Purchased it in early 2011.
Okay, I have here records from the auditor which show the purchase of the property in the name of Thomas Prue and Jocelyn Prue, husband and wife, in 2011. Did you originally purchase it with your wife
Yes.
together? And then did you subsequently deed the property over to Prue Properties LLC?
Yes.
When about did you deed the property over?
I believe it was sometime later that year.
Okay. And why did you transfer the property over to the LLC?
We were advised to do that by our attorneys for some legal reason that I don't.
Okay, I'd like to introduce certified records from the auditor's office. Okay, the auditor's records show the history of the property, shows that Prue Properties Walter LLC is the owner of the property. There is also in there a parcel card that lists this building as commercial. Okay, now was the building a 4-unit property when you purchased the building, Mr. Prue?
Yes.
Who did you purchase the property from?
It was owned by Fannie Mae at the time.
Okay, did anyone assist you in the purchase of the property?
Yeah, we had a real estate agent, Denise Henderson.
Okay, did the realtor tell you anything about the history of the property?
I don't know, off the top of my head.
Did she go through the property with you, and at the time, was it a 4-unit?
Yes, she walked through it with us, and she saw the same thing we saw.
Which was what?
That it was built as a 4-unit.
Okay. Would you have bought this property if you had known the city was going to cease allowing you to use this property as a rental unit?
Of course not.
Who currently lives in the property?
We have 4 tenants right now. Donna McCormick, Brian, his last name I can't pronounce, it's very long, Charisma Mickens, and Glenn Brown.
Okay, and have you filed rental registrations for 2012 and 2013?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to introduce some rental records here, some of which were produced by the city to us, one of which shows that this property was a rental in 2012, and another that it appears the city did not produce to us, but my clients had a copy of these records, and these records are for rental information of the property in 2013. Now, in getting the rental registrations, did a lease have to be submitted?
I don't know. My wife handled most of that.
Okay, I'll ask her about that then. Okay, where are the entrances and exits to the property?
Each unit has an entrance into a joined stairway that all leads out the front of the building, and each unit also has their own separate back entrance out onto a porch.
Okay. Now let's go through what the units look like. Okay, do each of the 4 units have a bathroom?
Yes.
Do each of the 4 units have a kitchen?
Yes.
Do each of the 4 units have a dining room?
Yes.
Do each of the 4 units have a living room?
Yes.
How many bedrooms are in each unit?
Each has 2.
Okay. Is there also a sunroom?
Yes,
Does each unit have a sunroom?
yes, they do.
Now, would it be fair to say that each of the 4 units are identical?
Well, the two on top of one another are identical, and then the two on the other side are a mirror image, so that all the windows face outwards for the bedrooms and the bathrooms.
Okay, so it's set out in the reverse
Correct.
on the other side? Now, do you believe that the layout of this property was done purposely?
Yes, I couldn't see it being by accident.
And what's your background?
I'm an engineer for ArcelorMittal.
Okay, so are you familiar with the way, properties are set up?
I feel fairly well versed in it.
Okay, as far as you know, has the property at 5664 Walter always been a 4-unit?
As far as I know, it has.
Okay, I'd like to ask you how the property is being taxed. That was raised before.
Sure.
How is the property being taxed?
It's taxed at the 2% rate of residential but not owner occupied.
Okay, and so are you telling me it's never been taxed as commercial?
Not since I've owned it, no.
Okay, so currently you're paying taxes at a 2% rate on this property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, how does the insurance company treat your property?
It treats it as a 4-unit residential rental.
Okay, it treats it as a multi-unit then?
Correct.
Okay, and do you then have to pay insurance per unit of the property?
I don't actually know how they break it down, but I know that they did have to evaluate each unit individually.
If I showed you records of your insurance, would that refresh your recollection?
Potentially.
I'll just have you take a look at that. And while you are doing that, I'm going to offer to the board the treasurer records, the Lake County assessor records, Mr. Prue, does this refresh your recollection of how your insurance company treats the property?
Yes.
And how does it treat it?
It treats it as a framed 4-unit apartment.
Okay. And does it show that you have to pay for each unit separately? Okay. Now, since you purchased the property, did you ever do any work on the property that required you to obtain a permit?
I had an HVAC company come in and replace the boiler system.
And what did you have to do to get that taken care of?
I believe they had to come in and pull a permit to do the work.
Okay. Was that a permit for heating work then?
Yes.
Okay, let me show you one of the documents produced to us by the city, and let me ask you if this is the mechanical permit that was pulled.
Yes.
Okay, this permit, which is on the last page of what I'm going to produce to you now, was one of the rounded documents produced by the building department to our office. It indicates a building permit date of 3/27/2012 with an expiration date of 04/26/2012. The project is listed as boiler. The structure is listed as multi-family home, and there is an estimated cost on there. Now, Mr. Prue, in order to obtain this building permit, did building inspectors have to come out to the house?
I don't know.
Would your wife be aware of that?
You'd have to ask her. I mean, I know that the company that did the work handled the permits.
Okay. Did you have electrical permits that you pulled as well?
I had reconnection inspections done for electrical, gas, and water.
Who came out to the house with the electrical inspections?
I believe it was Homer Smith.
Okay, and did Homer Smith inspect the property at the time that he was going through?
He did.
Okay, and these electrical permits that were pulled for Mr. Smith's reconnection of the electric, are there multiple permits that were issued?
So, okay, what happened was, when I went to pull the permit, I paid the $25 reconnection fee, and I got Mr. Smith to come out. And he, upon beginning his inspection, he informed me that I did not have the correct number of permits pulled, and that I needed to go back to the city and pull one for each unit. And so I had to go back and get I had to pay 4 separate connection fees for electrical and gas. And then water doesn't have a fee, but I needed for a
Okay.
permit that denoted 4 units.
Okay, so I'm going to show you here a set of 4 permits. One says Unit A-11 and indicates an electrical reconnect inspection. The second one indicates a reconnect fee for the second unit. The third one is the reconnect inspection for electric for Unit 3. And the fourth is a reconnect inspection for electric on Unit 4. Are these the permits that you were referencing?
Yes, A-11, I wrote all.
Okay.
I got misinterpreted, so.
Okay, so A-11 actually is
Yeah.
all. Okay, and then you had to have the subsequent inspections done. And did each have a fee of $25?
They did,
Okay, and that was for each unit?
correct.
Okay, I'd also like to ask you, did you have to pull a mechanical permit to get the gas and water reconnected?
They did.
Okay, approximately when did you pull that?
I honestly do not know.
Was it near the end of 2011?
That sounds correct.
Okay. Is this the permit, the mechanical permit to reconnect gas and water that you advised me you had pulled in 2011?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to introduce all of these permits. That is 4 separate permits for electric and 1 permit mechanical to reconnect gas and water. Okay,
I've got
Now-
a question.
yes.
If you're an engineer, when you bought that building, weren't you concerned that there was only one gas service and 1 electric service for the whole building?
I wasn't in the beginning. Anyone I had talked to had said that some of the older buildings had been grandfathered into the, to be allowed to have one system. And especially since I had a boiler system.
Yeah, gas, yes, but
Well,
typically electric, I don't think I've ever seen that.
I actually, no, I wasn't really concerned.
What size is the panel?
It's, I want to say it's about 40 breakers, maybe.
Yeah, but is it like a 200 amp service or?
I actually haven't opened it, so I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
You're an engineer and you own a building and you haven't even looked at the panel.
Hey, I don't want to get electrocuted if I can help it.
But you know it has 40 breakers, but you haven't opened it?
I opened the panel to see the breakers, but I didn't take the front.
You got a
panel.
master breaker up at the top and that's the panel size.
Oh, okay. You know what, I don't remember off the top of my head. I looked at a lot of panels.
What kind of engineer are you?
I'm a computer engineer, which is a cross between electrical and software.
Okay, Mr. Prue, have you had any additional work done on the
quick-
property?
One more quick question. When you say you're a computer engineer, do you have a professional licensure from the state of Indiana as an engineer?
No, I do not. But
Okay.
I attended a 4-year accredited school.
So you're like a software engineer?
I'm a computer engineer, yes.
Okay. Are you a network engineer, a software engineer,
No, I work as an electrical and computer engineer. I interface between the hardware. I mean, I work at ArcelorMittal, so I interface between like pump systems and crane hoists and the communications between them and the maintenance and electrical department.
Okay.
Okay, did you have to have any other work done on the property?
Cosmetic work mostly?
Okay, and did your wife speak to someone from the city that advised her that you did not have to obtain a permit to make cosmetic changes or improvements?
Yes.
Okay. And has the city ever requested that you make any changes to the property?
Not until recently.
Okay, has the city ever requested that you say cut the grass on the
Oh,
property?
yes, yes,
Have you complied with that?
every time.
Do you have any problem with complying with reasonable requests from the city?
Nope.
Okay. I'd like to go through the inspections that occurred at the property. Were you at both of the inspections?
I was.
Okay. Was it only, for your side, was it only you at the first inspection?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me what led up to this first inspection.
Sure. There was we got a call from one of our tenants about a potential issue with one of our other tenants that would have involved the police. My wife reached out to attempt to get an officer out to help us out with the problem. So she was in communication with an officer, and then that turned into being in communication with code enforcement, and they wanted to both go into the offending apartment.
Do you know why that happened? Why it switched from being an officer of the law that you had contacted to an inspector?
I have no idea. So we made arrangements with the offending apartment. We need to give them a 24-hour notice according to our lease. We gave them that notice, and then that day we approached the building. I contacted the apartment number 2, which we were visiting. I contacted those people. They weren't ready at the time, so we gave them a couple minutes to get ready, at which point I was informed that it wasn't just an inspection for that particular apartment, it was supposed to be an inspection for the entire building, which had never been communicated to us.
And who was the inspector that was there at the time?
Jim Callahan.
Okay.
I was unable to request from my other tenants, giving them the 24-hour notice that they needed, so I wasn't able to get into the other apartments, and that was pretty much the end of the inspection. We couldn't get into the other apartments, so we didn't inspect anything.
So were you under the impression that it was only the one particular apartment that you had made a complaint about that was being looked at that day?
We thought it was about the complaint in particular.
Okay. And did it confuse you that code inspections was asking to do this inspection rather than the police?
It was confusing.
Okay. Did the inspectors, when they were out, the inspector Jim Callahan, when he was out there the first time, did he give you any particular impression as to timing to follow up? You indicated he said that he wanted to inspect the rest of the property.
He said whenever we could get in contact with the other people to give him a call back, but it didn't sound urgent or necessary. It just sounded like if the problem continues, let us know when we can get into all the places.
Okay.
That's the impression I got of it.
So the impression was that the inspector just wanted to get out to the property eventually.
Right.
Okay. So what led up to the second inspection of the property?
We received a letter from the city saying we were in violation of not allowing code enforcement into our property, which we were a little bit surprised by. So we responded to them quickly, and we arranged a meeting, and we were able to do an inspection of all 4 units.
Did you have any problem letting code enforcement into your property?
No,
So this letter was a bit peculiar to you?
it seemed out of sorts.
Okay. Were you there when the inspection was conducted on November 19th, 2013?
Yes,
Was your wife also at the inspection?
yes.
Okay, I'd like to call Jocelyn Prue as a witness.
Thank you for allowing us to speak.
Ms. Prue, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay, Ms. Prue, now, you were there at the second inspection on November 19th, 2013, correct? Okay, can you tell me a little bit about your background and role in Prue Properties LLC?
Sure. Basically, my husband and I got into these ventures in Hammond with the purpose of trying to make a difference in our community, as well as with the intention of me leaving a corporate job that I had, which was extremely profitable for me. I never would have left my job had I known that this was going on, or that Hammond would come to me with this kind of stuff. So you guys can check my records. I had probably one of the most idyllic jobs ever. So with that in mind, our purpose being that I'm a Purdue Calumet grad, I live in Hammond with my husband, my family is all here. Our intention was to kind of try to get into this, and with my experience dealing with clients, my role would be to work with the tenants, work with the city on meeting all of the different, all of the different requirements that are asked of us. And so with that said, I had obviously a role to play in that if a tenant asks me to look into something, my first reaction is going to be to contact the authorities who I think are there to help us and protect my tenants. Never did I once expect that me calling a police officer would turn into code inspection basically coming at us in a very aggressive way. The day of the 19th, I was informed by Matt Saliga that he would be the only person there at the inspection. Matt Saliga had a person by the name of Jesse call us the day before the inspection to reschedule it for a different time. And basically, I even asked that person, Jesse, okay, this is our first time ever going through this. We still kind of don't know what this is all about.
How many properties do you own?
We have multiple properties now.
How many units total?
Our house, this one, and a couple of commercial properties that we're working on. And that's part of another project that, being that we do want to give back to the community, being that we do, we do work with Purdue to try to revitalize.
Ms. Prue, you have your house that you live in, that you said is in Hammond, this property, and a couple commercial properties?
Commercial properties. And then
What is Walter Avenue? Do you
it's
own,
the same, Walter Avenue is the.
oh, and 316 Carroll is the same as Walter?
Same thing for some reason, I don't know.
For some reason, the records of the city reflect this as 5664 Walter, 316 Walter, and 316 Carroll. I've also seen I'm sorry, I misspoke, 613 Walter,
Okay,
613
so these are
Carroll.
all we're all talking
Also
about the same
seen-
unit with these 4 different addresses.
Yes, I've also seen the numbers backwards, 316 Carroll, so it was also formerly known as 842 Walter, which you heard Mr. Saliga state previously.
Well, that clears things up.
Sorry, guys. But to get back to that day, I was under the impression it would be Matt Saliga meeting with us. Even Jesse confirmed that was the case. And then next thing we know, we get to this inspection, and it's Jim Callahan, Jesse, Matt Saliga, and 2 police officers. And basically, we felt completely bombarded. I mean, to me, I just never thought that the city that I love so much and that I'm trying to give back to would ever treat us in such a way. But we still treated them very nicely, let them through. It was very intimidating. They never really answered all the questions as to why this ever happened. The one thing I asked the officer, the first one I spoke to, over the phone is, why is code inspections involved with something that we called about in terms of possible suspicious activity with drugs? Why did code enforcement get involved? Isn't that your position to do? And the officer said to me he didn't know. He would talk to Jim Callahan, get back to me with some information. That never happened. So at this point, it was pretty aggressive from the beginning, from the first phone call I had with Mr. Jim Callahan to the second inspection my husband had, and then subsequently with us. But we complied, let them through, and at that point, We asked them, can you please let us know right away what the violations are, if you could, because they were notating stuff, and we're like, please give us this evidence, please let us know what it is that, is going on. And it took a little while before we finally got that. And even the fire separation stuff they mentioned, we don't know what they're talking about because they've never provided us with pictures of fire separation issues. We've never received anything in writing to show us what they're even referring to.
Ms. Prue, could you run me through what the inspectors did when they were at the property?
Pretty much every inspector, including the officers, went into all the apartments, including the apartment, that was upstairs with a child. It was a very intimidating environment. Even we had to go in there because obviously we didn't want them inspecting without us being present. And so it just was an awful feeling to have to subject all of our tenants to that situation. It's just something we did not expect.
When the inspectors were in the property, did they take any measurements?
I recall them doing all kinds of stuff, taking pictures and things like that, but, I didn't watch every single aspect. And sometimes they would go toward the back, and it was just no room for us to even get back to the rooms further in the back.
Did any of your tenants contact you after the inspection?
We did speak to some of our tenants, especially the one with the child, and they were just very shaken by all of this. I mean, they were like, I guess if it's the law, we all just really felt like our rights were violated. We would have appreciated some kind of a heads up that how this was going to go down. And it was just an awful experience. So much that we feel that at this point, we don't know if anything ever occurs like this, or I get a call from a tenant about suspicious activity, or if I even see it, I'm afraid to call the cops. This has really shaken us. It is really got to the point where we're reconsidering even if Hammond should be the place we make our home or continue to invest in.
Don't you want your building to be safe for your tenants?
Absolutely. I come from the same
Well,
background.
if you don't know what fire separation is, then you wanted the experts to come in and tell you that,
I would love
right?
for them to tell me what it is. We still haven't received that information.
So that if
sir.
there's a fire in one of the units, there's so many hours of protection before it spreads to the next unit. It's very simple.
I agree with you 100%, and we are always willing to comply and do what it takes. I come from the same background as my tenants. I didn't grow up in a rich home. So we are always willing to do what is right for our tenants. This is the first time we ever hear of this. And still to this day, we've not received any documentation from any of these people telling us what the fire separation issue is. We don't have pictures. We have no way to take a proper engineer or anything through. I haven't received it.
This is hearing about the notice of violation on uninhabitable space, not about an inspection. That's another issue.
The
This person's attorney has all the information that we have.
The
Everything.
inspection.
All this testimony has nothing to do with building code or the legality or safety of this building.
The inspection is what led to the issuance of this notice of violation here. It's all relevant.
Not for this notice of violation.
One of the things that
Uninhabitable space.
you submitted a number of pictures to me showing no permits to convert, no fire separation, indicating that. So I am going to have to say this is all relevant, especially considering that you're proceeding under R317.1, dwelling unit separation. This is perfect.
Contractor's been
I would
hired
like
to
to-
go through the building and determine what can be done to make it safe.
I would like to answer the gentleman's question, as I never really got to answer it. I will, yes, we have been working with contractors. We've been trying to get in touch with you. You have not responded.
No. You had your chance to present.
I understand.
I asked you if you were finished. You said you were. It's now her chance. We're going to let her finish, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to close with any additional arguments that you want to close with. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to have an argument here, okay?
I agree, I understand, I just object to the testimony.
And we'll note that you object to the testimony, okay? But we're gonna handle ourselves with a modicum of respect and professionalism here, and not argue like, a bunch of crazies, okay?
Okay, I'd like to submit the notice of violation and the first set of records that were produced to me by the city. This has the pictures that I was referencing, among other things. Okay, so Ms. Prue, you had been addressed with a question.
Yes. there is nothing more than I would want to make sure that these, if there is a fire separation issue, that, you know, we comply with the law as far as the separation. If there's drywall that needs to put in, if there's joists, I guess I heard him mention, we'll work on that. We have no problem. We've already started working on that list and have contracted several contractors. We still have more to go because we got very short time. This citation was sent to us the week of Christmas. And then subsequently after that, we had the big blizzard. So we are doing everything within our capability to try to rectify whatever it is that we need to rectify.
Now,
But what we're asking is that you guys please consider the fact that this, from our standpoint and from the records that the attorney has presented, we've always seen this as a 4-unit. It had not been, we never would have purchased it. And we would just like the opportunity to make it compliant as a 4-unit.
okay, and you had at one point spoken with a gentleman about tiling that was in the property. Did he mention something having to do with fire dwelling code separation at that point?
That would be a better question for my husband.
Okay.
As far as knowing that kind of stuff.
But did you speak with someone regarding this
Both of
tile?
us had spoke to basically a local hardware store to kind of get information on these tiles. And then subsequently, he's looked up online to find out the grading of these tiles that are, I guess, fire resistant.
Mr. Prue, could I have you answer the question I directed to your wife, please?
Sure. I looked into the drop ceiling tiles that we use, and they're all NFPA Class A rated for an hour's worth of fire separation.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Prue, did you ever have to have someone come out to verify that the property was inhabitable for a tenant who was looking to get township assistance?
Yes, I did.
Could you tell me about that?
That was last year, back in, I think, March or April, and they did receive assistance for 2 months in a row. It called for the folks who handle that to come out and make sure that it's a safe and inhabitable home according to their, whatever that checklist or whatever it is that they use. But
Do you know who it is that had to come out to inspect that?
I have records at home. I would have to look those up.
Okay, but did they have to determine that the property was inhabitable for the township tenant to reside there?
Yes, they basically, what they would do is come out and not only do that first visit and inspection, but they'd come out subsequently, I think once a month to double check.
Okay, and approximately when were they doing those inspections?
I believe between April and June, somewhere between those 2 months.
Okay,
She got assistance for 2 months, that's all I
April and
recall.
June of what year?
2000, last year, yeah, last year,
Okay, so 2013?
yes.
Okay. Did the inspectors do anything else when they were on the property?
Basically, the people who come out for that, they're mostly dealing with the tenant. And then they have me sign a contract based off of their inspection.
Did they look at the electrical box while they were on the property?
I do not recall, honestly.
Okay, Mr. Prue, do you recall if they looked at the electric box? Okay. Okay. Is there anything further that either of you would like to add? Okay.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I,
Mr. President, oh, I'm sorry, she's concluded, I just had a...
no, I'm not. I'm concluded with those witnesses.
Okay, but I would like then to cross-examine the witnesses.
Okay.
here. Mrs. Prue, you said this all commenced back in October when Apartment 2's boyfriend started beating up Apartment 2's tenant?
That's not what we call
No.
that.
Okay, but were you aware of a police call on October 22nd where Apartment 2's boyfriend punched Apartment 2's resident 5 times?
I was not aware of that. We called in regard to the narcotics issue.
In Apartment 2?
In that apartment.
Okay. And when did you become aware of a narcotics issue in Apartment 2?
At the same time that we called in October.
October. Okay. Did you move to evict those tenants?
We did, we sent them, we talked to our attorney, and they said send them the warning letter. We did all of that, and then subsequently they've complied.
Now, you indicated that after that, you were surprised to have gotten a notice in the mail. Do you have a voicemail at your house?
We did receive voicemails,
Okay, so you're going...
but we literally,
Wait, finish my question. So on November 1st, 2013, Matt Saliga attempted to contact you by phone about the voicemail, is that correct?
I don't know what date it was. I know Matt did leave me
And
a
then on
message.
November 7th, 2013, a week later, he attempted to contact you by phone and left a voicemail, is that correct?
I've only received one message from Matt.
And then on 11/13, he called and left a voicemail, is that correct?
We had already been in contact with him way before that.
When did you speak to him? Because I have the notes indicate you spoke to him on 11/13.
I would have to pull my phone records.
So it wasn't such a big surprise that you get something in the mail, he's been trying to get a hold of you for 2 weeks?
We got a voicemail and literally did not even get a chance to respond before we already had a letter in the mail. That's why it was a surprise to us.
I have nothing further.
Okay, may I proceed with my next witness?
Please.
Okay, I would like to call Matt Saliga.
Matt, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay, Mr. Saliga, did you receive my request for public records here?
I did.
Okay, are there 3 separate requests for public records?
Yes.
Okay, and did you, as a consequence, provide me with sets of records on 2 occasions?
Yes.
Okay, the first set of documents that you produced to me, what did that include?
To the best of my knowledge, everything that is requested.
Okay, did that include a notice of violation?
I believe so.
Did it include several pictures?
Again, I pulled everything I could find, to the best of my knowledge, for the request as written. Your requests.
Did you and I have a conversation after the last hearing here about the additional documents that I felt should have been produced?
Yes, for example, the ledger sheets which were produced.
Okay, so now your second set of production included ledger sheets.
Yes.
And did it also include some information regarding rental registrations? And
Reconnect inspections.
and reconnect inspections. Okay, so I believe we've submitted the reconnect inspections. I'd like to submit the records of permit logbooks, as well as an additional item that had been provided with the second go-round. As well as the request for public records and the notice of violation, which I just spoke. Okay, with respect to the notice of violation, what is the address of the property?
5664 Walter.
And has this property been known as another address?
842, and for the county, 613, which I believe is an error.
Okay, but is that on this notice of violation?
Yes,
Okay. The reflection of 613 Walter Avenue? Have you also seen this as 613 Carroll?
I don't recall.
Okay, if I would advise you that that was in some of the records that you produced to me, would you have any reason to disbelieve that? Okay. Do you know why this property's had so many addresses?
Well, in the 1930s, there was an address change. That's why it went from 842 to 5664 Walter. As far as 613 Walter or 613 Carroll, 316 Carroll or Walter, I have no clue.
Okay. Now, you didn't sign this notice of violation, did you?
No.
Okay, who signed this notice of violation?
James Callahan?
But you were at the inspections of the property, correct?
I was.
Were you at both or just the second time around?
Just the one on November 19th.
Okay, so Mr. Callahan was at the first inspection, to what you understand, correct?
I would assume.
Okay, who else was at the inspection on November 19th?
Callahan, Jesse Escamilla, and officer.
Was Mr. Callahan at that second inspection as well?
Yes. On
And-
November 19th.
And you're saying, why was there a police officer there?
We take a police officer on most of our inspections for our safety.
Is
Common
that
practice.
typical?
Yes.
Okay, do you have knowledge of the items complained of in this notice of violation?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to summarize this real quickly here. The violations alleged are requirement to pay a building permit fee, an allegation that no plumbing license or permit was obtained, an allegation that no electrical permit was obtained to do the work, an issue with dwelling unit separation, an allegation that Prue Properties has no contractor's license and that no license was displayed, as well as allegations under Chapter 158 of the Hammond City Code in Section 96. Is that your understanding?
Section 156, yes.
156 is...
Actually, 150, 151, 156 for permits, and IRC code, chapter 317,
Is-
R317.
Is there anything specifically that you're bringing under Section 198 or Chapter 96 of the Hammond Municipal Code? Is there anything specific you're alleging?
No, all the violations are listed on the form with their numbers
Okay.
that are relevant to this case.
Now, I'm just going to back up a bit. With respect to the request for public records, were you the one who prepared the requested documents?
Yes,
Okay, and as I stated before, there were two sets of documents, correct?
yes.
And to your understanding, why were there two sets of documents?
I had spoken with you last week as to additional information you wanted, for example, the ledger sheet printouts instead of just a spreadsheet type form, which I had no problem with.
Okay, now, on the sheet that you had given me the first time around, there are a number of permits listed, and you went through them with the board, real quickly here, so I don't want to, keep going through these, but one of the permits that was pulled was remodeling the building into an ice cream parlor. Is that correct? Yes. Now, how can you tell from this very vague permit language what was done with the property in order to remodel it into an ice cream parlor?
In 1950,
Yes.
the permit is in the ledger book, it says remodel building into an ice cream parlor.
And
Take that into account with the county records at that time. At the ice cream parlor, there was one apartment on the second floor.
And where are these records reflecting there was one apartment on the second floor?
In the documents that were given to you.
Can you show me specifically?
It was presented to the board.
Do you think remodeling of the building in 1950 would have involved some electrical work?
Yes.
Do you think remodeling of the building in 1950 would have involved some plumbing work?
Yes.
Now, when did the electrical work provisions come into effect in this code? Specifically, I'm talking about 151.16, electrical inspection department, and 151.34, license required / displayed.
These ordinance violations reflect in the notice is for specifically to adding an apartment. Or
Okay.
apartments.
Okay, but are the electrical inspection requirements different today than they were, say, in 1950?
I would assume.
Okay, I have a copy of section 151.16, electrical inspection department, which indicates the prior code was passed in 1961. So that is what governed that at the time. And I'd like to introduce that as well as the licensure requirement of showing a permit for electrical work, which was passed in 2007. Okay, of the permits that you had gone through earlier, was there one that was for re-siding installing rear stairs and doors?
Yes,
And when was that done?
1974.
And during this, why would a set of rear stairs and doors be installed in a property like this?
At the building.
Now, isn't it feasible that this set of stairs was a requirement imposed by the city because the building was a multi-unit property?
I have a question. What year were the stairs put on? I missed that.
1974. And in 1975, drywall was installed, correct?
Yes, and I also say in 1974, installing stairs and doors, being there was already a second floor apartment there. And maybe conclude that it was just redoing the stairs that were already there.
Okay, so you're saying there was already a second floor apartment in 1974?
As far back as 1950.
As far back as 1950, there
One
was...
second floor apartment.
Okay, in 1974 was an electric permit pulled.
Building and electric, yes.
Okay, and what was the...
Yes.
The building permit was what we just spoke about with the installing rear stairs and doors?
Correct.
Is that, okay. And the electric permit shows what from 1974?
There was just a permit to work, it does not specify.
Are permits today required to be more specific than they were in the past?
Yes.
So can you tell from a permit, say from 1974, that sets forth electric, can you tell what kind of electric work it's for?
Can you tell from the ledger sheet? No. Can you tell from the work that was done? Yes.
Okay, and what work are you alleging is done?
If they were doing electric work at that time to add 4 units, there would be 5 meters. 1 for each unit, power each unit, and 1 public meter.
But you're telling me there was already a second floor apartment there.
Again, it was common practice in those days to have a business, owners lived upstairs, 1 meter.
Okay, so back in the 1950s, would 1 meter have been fine?
I believe so. In 1 apartment.
Okay, what kind of work would have to be done to, quote, repair fire damage?
That's very vague. I'm not sure exactly what the fire damage is.
Okay, so you saw this permit from 1980 that said repair fire damage, correct?
Yes.
From this permit language, do you have any indication of what could have been done?
Other than a permit in 1980 for heating, no.
Okay, and who is listed under repairing fire damage?
I'm not sure.
Who is this permit showed to have been pulled by in the logbooks?
No, I'd have to see the logbook.
If I said Hoosier State Bank, does that sound familiar?
No. Buildings leaked, 1980 heating permit, 5664 volts.
I was talking about the one that says repair fire damage.
Okay. Repair fire damage.
Okay. Now, in the records of permit logbooks that you produced to me, there are also a few additional things sort of near the end of what you had produced, and I've already submitted those documents to the board. And I see what appears to be building plans of some sort. Can you interpret these for me?
I believe them to be sheets from the county assessor as to when they would go and measure the property and assess what is there.
Does this first sheet here appear to be showing a second floor apartment?
Yes, it clearly shows a restaurant and a second floor apartment. And in addition to the restaurant in the rear.
Okay, so it's showing there was definitely a separation at the point that these records were made, which
What do you mean by separation?
it shows that there was an apartment, there was a restaurant, there was an addition to a restaurant. It shows separate units.
Yes, correct. Shows the restaurant, main level, second floor apartment, one.
And I see on here a date of 1977. What would that indicate to you?
I cannot attest to a lot of the scribble on there.
Right, there is a lot of scribble on these records. This next page indicates 4 4-room apartments, and it also says 63077. What can you tell me about this?
I would assume that it was measured by the assessor in 1977, and again, the assessor measures and counts units, counts rooms, counts bathrooms, bedrooms, etc.
And this also reflects that there's a second floor apartment, number 4. There's 4 apartments and 4 rooms at the property, correct? That's what the notations say right here in the bold print.
We are not arguing at any point that there's 4 apartments, or we know there's 4 apartments there right now. There's no issue there. The issue is, are they legal and are they safe? And they're not.
Now, are there different code requirements, were there different code requirements in the 1970s than there are today?
Not sure offhand.
Okay, isn't it possible that this structure could have been a conforming use at one point in time?
Conforming use as,
A 4-unit, that this property is conforming and that all of the permits that have been pulled are for work that has been done to update the building to comply with code requirements.
I would guess anything's possible, but the evidence shows quite the contrary.
Are you aware of what people casually refer to as the grandfathering provision of the Hammond zoning ordinance?
Yes, but I'm not sure exactly what they mean.
Okay, I'm going to have you look at this. Now I'd like to direct your attention to section 26.20, requirement for building permit. This section states, no building or structure shall be hereafter erected, reconstructed, altered, or raised, nor shall any work be started to erect, move, alter, reconstruct, or raise until a building permit shall have been applied for in writing, issued by the building commissioner pursuant to the applicable provisions in Hammond City Code, Chapter 120. No building permit shall be issued to erect a building or structure or make any change of use of a building or land unless it is in conformity with the provisions of the ordinance and all amendments hereto. What do you understand this to mean?
That zoning requires a permit to build.
Okay, and we've seen a number of permits, correct?
Yes.
Now, there are some claims here that the Prus did not pay some building permit fees, correct? On the notice of violation? Under 150.003?
Honestly, we don't have an issue with the plans. They didn't, we're not arguing that they created these additional units. Previous owners did. That's why they're there.
But there's still you're still asking for a payment of a building permit fee under 150.003 in the notice of violation, correct?
There would have been for those additional units. But there's not. I
So,
believe this area is zoned R1U, which would allow for 2 units.
now I'm just trying to I'm just trying to get a straight answer here. What money are you contending is owed under a building permit fee under
Look
150.003?
in the ledger sheets, when you apply for a permit, there's always a fee associated with that.
And
If there was a permit to add an apartment, or anything for that matter, there would be a fee associated with that.
now, were there fees associated with each of the permits and logbooks that you showed me previously?
I believe so.
So what building permit fees are we looking at that are remaining
What
unpaid?
we're saying is there's no building permit fees because there's no building permit to add these additional units. There is no permits for additional units. There's permits for drywall, stairs, an ice cream parlor, preparing a fire,
Now-
creating additional space.
Now, what would you imagine would have to be done to convert a property, remodel it to an ice cream parlor?
That'd be up to a general contractor.
Do you imagine there would be electrical work done?
There'd be all kinds of work.
And that may not be dealt with specifically in that little language that says remodel into an ice cream parlor. That could have included a massive amount of work, correct?
Conceivable.
Okay, so what plumbing work are you contending was done without a permit?
That's the thing. There was no plumbing work associated with adding additional units.
So there's nothing specific other than this claim of additional units. Do you acknowledge that there was a permit pulled that's listed as heating/plumbing in 1980?
Yes.
How can we tell from the logbook record what plumbing repairs were done at that point?
Can't.
Do you think a remodel of the building in 1950 would have involved some plumbing work?
Yes.
Does the code allow owners of residences to make some small plumbing repairs without a permit?
It's pretty vague.
I'm not saying that, I'm not referring to the Prus specifically, but,
For example, you don't need a licensed plumber to change your faucet.
okay, so conceivably, some work can be done by an individual who owns the property.
Yes, but not running plumbing to add additional units. Which is what happened. And there are no permits.
Well, we've got a plumbing permit in 1980, and again, we've discussed the 1950 remodel.
If you look at 1984, there's a permit to recite a house.
Well, this property has been referred to as a lot of different things. One of the things that even shows up in the parcel card is it says commercial on the property. Do you know how this property is classified, what property class it falls under?
I believe commercial for the assessor's visual inspection.
Okay, so you've seen a 401 classification of the property. Have you also seen, what does 401 stand for?
I believe commercial.
Is it commercial 4 to 19 family apartments?
I believe so.
Are you aware that the Lake County Surveyor also classifies this property as a 4-unit building?
I do not.
Okay, let me show that to you. If I could have you read property class.
4 to 19 family apartments. But again, we're not contending that there's 4 apartments there. There are 4 apartments there. Problem is, they should not be there. They should be at best two.
And how far back are, let's see, hold on. How far back do the permit requirements go for plumbing work?
As far as the city,
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Now, I'm looking at section 156.20, which was cited in the notice of violation. 156.20 states permit required fees. And that ordinance was passed in 1973 for the plumbing work.
156.20 is no plumbing permit was obtained to do the work. It doesn't have anything to do with fees.
Well, it says the language is permit required semicolon fees. That's what I'm talking about. And also, there's 156.10, which requires a license and registration for plumbing work. And I'm also showing that as passed in 1973. Okay, are you familiar with when these code provisions were passed? Now, with respect to obtaining of a contractor's license, that's one of the other things that is listed in this notice of violation, that no contractor's license was obtained to do the work, correct?
Do the work to add additional units. Correct.
Now, let's talk about the issue of dwelling unit separation. Are there multiple versions of the International Residential Code?
What do you mean by multiple versions?
I mean, is there a version from, say, 2003, a version in 2006, a version in 2012?
Yes, I believe so. We operate under 2003.
Okay, and by we, you mean the state of Indiana, correct?
To the best of my knowledge.
Okay, now, have you seen this building listed as a commercial property in some places
Yes.
in the city records?
Again, it's operating as a commercial building, 4 units. There's no argument there.
Are there different requirements for fire separation for commercial buildings than there are for residential buildings?
I believe so. You operate under a whole different building code. It would be International Building Code for commercial property, International Residential Code for 1, 2, 3.
And what are you contending this is? Are you contending it's residential or commercial?
Neither. We're contending that it should be residential, 2 unit. Currently sits as a 4-unit commercial building.
Okay, so the version of the fire code that's been cited here, what does that apply to?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
It's the section 3.17, I'm sorry, 317.1, dwelling unit separation.
That's International Residential Code.
So if this building isn't classified as a residential building, wouldn't a different code apply?
Yes. Problem is, it should have never been converted to a commercial building.
And is an ice cream parlor a commercial use? So you're saying it could have been a commercial building as early as 1950, if not before? Okay,
Again, it goes back to the issue of there were no permits ever to convert an ice cream parlor with an apartment upstairs where we would assume the owners lived, 4 separate units. There is no evidence of that. If anything, there's evidence it went from an ice cream parlor and a second floor apartment to a house.
okay, now with respect to the dwelling unit separation, what would be satisfactory to the city to comply with these requirements?
5/8 inch drywall.
Now, what would that,
First and second floor.
what would that require to be done?
That would be something you would want to talk to a contractor about. For specific answers.
Would they need to completely rip up the 4 units that are existing?
Again, that'd be something to talk to a contractor about.
Okay, so I'm just asking about the scope of work that would need to be done to correct the alleged problems.
Is there a question?
Do you have any idea of the scope that would need to be done to
That's
correct
for the
these?
expertise of the general contractor.
Now, have you seen a lot of buildings in Hammond that are set up as multi-units?
Yes?
And so you're familiar with the way these were set up?
What do you mean?
Are you familiar with the multi-unit setup that you've seen in a lot of buildings in Hammond?
Yes, both legal and illegal.
And how can you tell the difference?
That's, every property is different.
Now, a lot of these properties, there were pretty loose records that existed, right? Going back to the permit records,
For which property?
the permit records for this property specifically.
Pretty loose? I would
But-
say no.
Okay, well, it's showing that permits were pulled, correct? But there's not a whole lot of description, is there?
I disagree.
You disagree that one sentence remodel into ice cream parlor is pretty descriptive?
I do.
And you had said before that you couldn't from that tell me what kind of work would have had to have been done in order to do that.
Two different things. Work being done in a unit as to what it's being called is two different things.
Okay, I'm done with the questions for this witness. Is Mr. Callahan available?
Well, first of all, just, I want to clog up everything with procedure, but after direct examination comes cross-examination, so I decided to ask him something. Saliga, back in 1920, if this had been built as a 4-unit, would it have been built as a frame structure?
No.
If in 1950, as an ice cream parlor, extensive electric work had been done, don't you believe that that would have included increasing it from 1 meter to more than 1 meter?
Yes.
So it doesn't appear that extensive electric was done in 1950.
You can conclude that, yes?
It doesn't appear extensive electric's ever been done on the property.
No.
Is 1 meter safe for 4 units?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Overload the circuits, multiple circuits, cause fire.
And as we know, a fire already happened in 1980.
Correct?
Okay, and despite the fact there was a fire, they didn't increase the number of electrical outlets,
That would be
or
correct.
outlets meters.
That'd be correct.
I'm done with cross-examination.
Callahan, can you raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Mr. Callahan, did you issue the notice of violation that we were speaking about previously?
I signed the notice of violation that you're speaking about
Okay.
all morning.
Did you put the items together in the notice of violation? Did you set forth the specific
The inspector does that.
codes? Okay, so the inspector, who would the inspector have been that did that in this instance?
Isn't the name on there?
The only name I see is yours with a signature at the
Yeah, I
end.
don't remember who the inspector was. If it was, I don't remember.
Did you go out to inspect this property at some point?
I was out there twice.
Okay, so were you out there, did you hear Mr. Saliga testify previously?
I wasn't paying that much attention to all of it because of other issues, but I've heard most of it.
Okay, so you were out there a first time and you only saw part of the building, is that correct?
I don't believe we even entered the building because the owner didn't have a key to get in, if I remember properly.
Now, why were you called out there in the first place, or rather, how did that come about?
That started when the owner called PD complaining about a tenant that was either smoking drugs or dealing drugs in one of the apartments. And PD asked me to go out there with them, and I told them to be glad to go out there with them.
And why would the police have asked you to go out there with them?
Because PD can't just knock on or walk in an apartment. Okay, they would have to have proof of some kind of drug dealing, and they asked us to inspect the building. So when we went out there, I don't remember getting in the building, and I remember the police officer telling the owner to not waste our time, and if you want us to get in the building, have everybody available to let us in the apartments.
Okay, so were you under the impression that you were supposed to see the entire building this first time around and not just the one particular unit being complained of?
Not under any impression, if we go in a building, we're going to inspect the whole building, rather than just one unit. That would be not the way we operate.
Okay, so were you there at the inspection on November 19th?
Correct.
Okay, did you observe the same things did you observe the building as did Mr. Saliga?
Sure I did.
Okay, did you look at the fire dwelling unit separation
I looked at it.
issues? Okay, did you look at the existing plumbing on the property?
No.
Did you look at the electrical work done on the property?
I had to remove the wall, drywall to observe the electrical work. No, I did not.
Was there any indication that electrical work had been done on the property recently?
Couldn't tell that.
Okay, how would you be able to tell if electrical work was done?
Well, depends. You really can't unless you see extension cords or something that was unsafe, not to code. I actually ran the permit history, and I knew from the permit history that it was converted to an ice cream parlor, and there was never a permit issued to convert it back to a apartment.
Now, what kind of work would need to be done to convert a property to an ice cream parlor?
When?
In 1950.
What does it say in the ordinance? When did that go into effect?
Well, there were certain parts of the ordinance that were not in effect in 1950. You're aware that there are previous versions of the Hammond zoning ordinance and the city code that have been in effect over the years, correct?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so it wouldn't surprise you if I told you, for instance, that some of these requirements, like the electrical requirements to the electrical inspection requirement dates back to 1961, but that there's nothing that existed specifically that's the same that was there in 1950, correct?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, but Section 151.16, Electrical Inspection Department, I'm showing that as the code having been passed in 1961.
You know, what does it have to do
Correct.
with? Your first question was what would have been required, and now we're on electric. What would have more than likely been required is the building commissioner, because that was a separate entity at that time, would have requested plans, drawings submitted to the state to get state approval before any building permit would have been issued.
Now, have you seen these documents here?
I'm at, I have my glasses on, but I think that's what Matt showed me yesterday.
Okay, and does
Where
it,
it was an ice cream parlor with one apartment on the top floor.
okay, are these some sort of building plans?
That's something I'm sure that the assessor put together.
But,
Building plans, that's not building plans. So, I mean, this is the ice cream parlor here, correct? Or
that's saying, second floor
Oh, second floor
apartment.
apartment.
This says restaurant, that says addition to restaurant/bar.
Okay, what year was that? 81?
No, I'm seeing right here towards the bottom, it has a marking 6/30/77, and it
Yeah,
says
and what does this one
JB as
say?
an initial. 11/9/81?
Okay, what's it say here? Sorry. I don't
I'm
know
not
what-
quite sure. These aren't the easiest to read.
No, I understand. You know, you have this information here, but you have the permit that says they can convert it from this restaurant, ice cream parlor back to an apartment?
Well, we've got a number of different other permits that have issued since
That's not what I asked. I
1950.
mean, I asked if that is the permit to
Is
convert
that how you believe it would show up? A permit to convert ice cream parlor to house?
Well, the way I see, when I do a permit history, that's what I see, the way I see it. I don't know when you do a permit history, how you see it, but when I see it, it would say convert ice cream parlor back to single-family home or apartment, or convert garage to a one-unit apartment,
Now, how long have you worked with the city of Hammond?
9 years.
Okay, and have you been in the inspections department that whole time?
The inspections department started 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Okay, and in your inspections, have you seen a number of multi-unit buildings?
Driving around the city or doing inspections?
Either one?
I've seen a few,
Okay, but you were in this one specifically.
correct.
Okay, and like you said, you've gone through the permit history and you've seen that there were a number of permits that were pulled. Did you see permits pulled for electrical work?
I don't recall seeing anything for electrical work.
Okay, there was testimony earlier that there was a permit pulled for electric in 1974.
See, what kind of
Do-
electrical work was done?
I don't know, the permit histories aren't very specific.
Well, when I do see electrical work, it'll say rewire apartment or rewire house. Could have been something, I don't know what it could have been.
But do the old permit histories, I'm talking the log books, the old permit histories, they'll say the electric, they'll list out a company that did the work and a date of the work, correct? Is there usually a lengthy description of the work being done?
Not in the ledgers.
Where would any description of the work that was done be?
It would be probably on, I don't know at that time how they did it, more than likely on the permit application itself or the permit itself.
Does the city keep records of the permit applications dating back to the 1950s, 1960s? How
No,
far did,
But the assessor might.
okay. Are you aware that the assessor has this property listed as a commercial property?
I see this all the time.
Okay, you see it all the time with properties that are residential?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Well, because there's two ways that the assessor will classify a building. One is they're required to enter every permit that the city sends them every month into their system. The other way is they have an inspector that goes out and walks through a house or a building and says, oh God, there's 3 units here rather than a single family home. So they're classified as a 3-unit or a commercial building or whatever. That's the only two ways that, to my knowledge, that they're classified.
Now, has an inspector been out to this property prior to these inspections that took place in 2013?
Which property?
To the property that we're discussing, 5664 Walter.
I didn't research that.
Okay, did you hear the testimony earlier that a Mr. Homer Smith came out to the property?
I don't know if I heard Homer Smith, but I heard about a reconnect.
Okay, so you're aware that the city was out to the property at one point for a reconnect inspection?
Okay.
No, are you? Were you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the city came out and do permits have to be pulled to have a reconnect inspection?
Yes.
And if it's more than one unit, are there separate permits?
Yes.
Okay, and who issues those permits?
The girls at our counter.
Okay, and for mechanical work, is a permit required to be issued?
You know, I don't understand what all this has to do with what we're here for today.
Well, we're here with a
Yeah.
number of contentions that permits weren't
Jim,
pulled.
Jim,
Question already?
Jim. Her belief is that the question that she's asking is going to elicit an answer that is going to provide the board with information relating to her case. So even though you might not think it's germane, she does and has the right to ask
Okay.
it, okay?
Okay. That's the question.
And, well, I'm not really sure at this point.
Me neither.
Okay, well, I think I'm done with this witness.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Okay, so in summary, we contend that the building has either always been a four-unit property or that it was properly converted to use as a four-unit property. We've seen that a number of permits have been pulled, and a lot of the city's regulations dealing with electrical and plumbing were not in effect at the time of this 1950 conversion to an ice cream parlor. You could also see in the documents provided by the city that there are plans that lay out the multiple apartments that existed. So we'd ask that the city withdraw its notice of violation.
Have any other information you wish to relay to the board at this time?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, does the city have anything in closing they wish to relay to the board?
Mr. President, I would just say that the evidence before the board, the fact that there's one gas meter, the fact that in 1920, the construction of four-unit would have been brick, not frame, and the fact that it was an ice cream parlor back in 1950 suggests that sometime between 1950 and 1977, when it was discovered by the assessor, the building was illegally converted to a four-unit and possibly a legal two-unit based on the 1950 permit, but was never anything beyond that.
There's a lot of evidence that's been presented. I'd like to make a motion that we take this under advisement and issue a written decision in 30 days.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item H, we have correspondence from Attorney Murphy requesting a continuance on the property located at 4828 Oak. And
Has this been continued numerous times before, or is this like the first request?
This is the first one.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we grant his request. When do you want to have it rescheduled for? Does he say how long he wants it continued for?
he doesn't, about 60 days.
March 14th?
March 14th,
Okay,
all in favor?
aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item I, we have a hearing on the property at 627 Kane. We have correspondence from Attorney Funk advising that he is in another court on another matter today and requesting a continuance until Doesn't appear he requests a date.
Can I just say that the owner of the property is here. She had no idea it was being continued, number one. Number two, this was scheduled for an original hearing on September 19th, 2013. Continued by the attorney November 14th, who continued it again because he was in another court, I believe. So last week, which the board continued to this week, I believe because of the weather. And here there's another continuance, which would be 3/4, this would be the fifth one. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Mr. Funk requests a date in March. Is there a motion to grant a final continuance to the March 14th date?
Let's go earlier than March 14th, Mr. President, just because March 14th is the new demo date, and I'd like to actually, final, I'd like to actually have it.
March 1?
Yeah, March 1st, 2nd.
March 7th?
March 7th? March 7th.
And can we please indicate in the state final continuance?
Is there a motion to grant a final continuance to March 7th? You understand you'll be granted no further continuances on March 7th. Your case will be heard on March 7th.
Okay.
Thank you. Item J, we have a rental registration hearing for the property at 1618 Myrtle. Anybody here from 1618 Myrtle?
I'm sorry.
It's not my turn.
All right, can you state your name and your interest in the property on Myrtle?
David Tokar.
You the neighbor?
No, the
Tenant, owner? Okay.
Yeah.
And now's your opportunity to explain to the board why you failed to register your unit on Myrtle.
My attorney asked that I maybe do a continuance. Is that possible?
For what reason, sir?
Because he wasn't able to get back to me until too late.
Oh, okay. Who is your attorney?
Actually, the lady that you just left.
Why did she do that? It seems like some trouble.
Fantastic. How about 2 weeks?
Thank you.
Which would be what, the 30th? That's, well, it's demo status date. Can we go with maybe the first week in February?
Sure. Actually, you want to go to the second week in February?
Yeah, sure.
Longer would be
13th?
better. I'm actually having surgery next week. I'll probably be not doing too well for a while, so the longer the better.
February 13th?
Okay, we're 2/13/14.
2/13/14.
Okay. Thanks so much.
This was not an accident.
Okay.
Item K, rental registration hearing for the property at 6232 Madison. Anybody here for the property at 6232 Madison?
Did you get a letter for that one?
What'd the letter say? How about-
Basically, she got the property, because someone owed her something. So, the property changed hands, and then she doesn't live in the state, so she didn't know she had to register it in California.
Seems legit. I was upside down with my bookie. I had to give him a garage once.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. It's up to you guys.
Does anybody have the letter?
Is there anybody living in
You're
it?
the board. I'm just.
It's never been registered, she's owned it,
Is there anybody
I
living?
believe, for 2 years, yeah,
So it's being rented right now?
yeah.
Is it just a single family?
Yes.
Are you arguing that it should be granted or should be denied?
No, you just asked me what was going on,
Okay.
well, you guys decide, go ahead, but,
Do you have any interest in this property?
no,
You like a neighbor or what?
no, I'm an inspector.
You're what?
I'm an inspector.
Oh, you are? He's a new
Yeah.
inspector?
How you doing? No,
Recognize him.
Has she, does anybody know that she ever been here?
no, she lives in California.
And how long has she owned it? Anybody know that? Well, then I mean,
Let's send it over, maybe she can provide some more information.
Yeah, I sent the letter up to your office, I don't know,
We can get her building mailing.
not your office,
To Lynn?
yeah.
Maybe we should send it over a week and get the letter materialized.
Very good. Who wants to send it over for a week? Somebody?
me.
Anybody want to second that?
What's next?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Feb. 23rd.
All right, item L, 6438 Madison. Ms. Lemus,
Yes.
you the owner of this property?
Yes.
It's your opportunity to explain to the board why you failed to register it.
Because I don't know, I have to fill a registration until somebody told me.
Could you speak up a little bit?
How long have you owned it?
Since 2003?
And you've never registered it in 11 years?
No, but I was living in the house.
Oh, you were living, okay. How long have you been renting it?
2 years.
And it's rented right now?
No. Well, the people is still there, but they don't should be there anymore.
Nobody's living there
I
right now?
filed for eviction. They are still there.
So there is somebody living there?
Mhm.
And you've had 2 years?
The person that's living there is paying rent?
Has there ever been an ice cream parlor located in this?
Maybe we'll give it a chance to just bring it all up to date. Yeah.
Does the board wish to make a motion on this matter?
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the late fee, but you need to register the unit for the previous 2 years.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Your appeal's been granted. You'll have to register the unit for the 2 years you've been renting it at $80 per year. You'll have 30 days to do so. If you fail to register the unit for those 2 years within the next 30 days, our order will be vacated and the late fees will be imposed. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item M.
Mr. President, this is one of the demolition properties that was for open bid today. I'm in receipt of that correspondence. They have been instructed to contact the building department, pay for an inspection, and as soon as they receive title, then the inspection will be completed.
Very good. Item N. We have correspondence from Mr. Michaels of Winfield, Indiana, requesting a hearing for an appeal of rental registration on a property on Kenwood.
And Linden.
And
Two
Linden.
properties, huh? Does he own them both?
Oh, there's two
Two
requests.
separate ones? Okay. So when does he want to have it?
Doesn't say. How's that February 13th date work out for you guys?
Okay.
February-
We rescheduled for February.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item O.
What about the other one, 7540 Linden? That's
Uh,
a
we-
separate one, right?
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, is there a motion to set 7540 Linden for the February 13th date?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item O, we have correspondence from Mr. and Mrs. Matthews requesting an appeal of the denial of their business license. Is there a
Are they here? No?
I don't believe they're asking to appeal the decision. I believe they're just submitting additional information to the board based on the, relating to the denial of their business license.
What kind of business was this? Do you remember?
It appears to be some sort of automotive sales.
Why was it denied? Because of this reason?
That's correct.
record. I'd like to make a motion that we enter that letter into the record.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item P, we have amusement devices submitted for approval. Is there a motion to approve the listing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item Q, we have correspondence from Councilman O'Pinker requesting additional time. Actually, we have correspondence from not Councilman O'Pinker, Councilman Higgs. We'll note these for the record. Item R, we have correspondence from Hessville Little League requesting permission to hold a parade, requesting the cooperation of the police and fire departments with some participation, and permission to hold a fireworks display.
Do we regulate the fireworks?
We do.
We have a permit?
At 9 o'clock in the morning?
No, the fireworks display is in the evening. It's an all-day event.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the requests?
So moved.
I approve of the parade and everything. but-
Wait, we need a second on the motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I approve of the parade and everything else except for the fireworks. Just want to be on the record.
Are you going to participate in the parade?
Nope. Not me. The fire department will be there, but not me.
Is it because of the fireworks? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item S, we have findings and orders submitted for 4822 Henry. 4428 Henry. Is there a motion to approve the findings and order?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Do we have any matters from other board members?
No.
Is there any matters from department heads? Is there any new or old business? Item 10, public expression. The meeting is now open to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board, now is your opportunity to do so.
Good morning, Commissioners. Carlotta Blake King, 1004 Highland Street. I just had a couple of questions. When we were here last week discussing the demolition for 918-22 Highland Street, we did submit a letter to be considered by you all, and it wasn't on your agenda as correspondence. Did we do it incorrectly, or did you consider it correspondence? That's a question. We did submit it to you guys during the meeting, during public expression. Was that considered correspondence, sir?
What was the question? I don't understand.
We submitted a letter of our request to rescind the demolition orders at the meeting during public expression. It was addressed to you all, and the question is, do you consider it correspondence?
No, your public expression is your opportunity to address the board. It's not correspondence.
But we
It's
did
public
submit a
expression.
letter, backing up everything we were said. Isn't that correspondence, sir? It was addressed to you on our letterhead. It was addressed to the Hammond Board of Works.
This is your opportunity to address the board.
I understand.
It's not an opportunity to question the board, okay? So we're going to
Okay.
give you a couple of minutes to address the board, let the board know whatever it is you want to convey
Okay.
to us, and
So at some point, you will convey to me whether or not that was correspondence? Is that what I'm hearing, sir?
no, you're hearing that this is your 2 minutes to address the board with whatever concerns you
Okay.
have.
Again, last week, we raised the question, could the order be rescinded? And the city attorney emphatically said no. However, we were able to get a copy of the unsafe building law and the ordinance that she quoted, and under IC 36-7-9-6, modification or rescinding orders. It clearly states the enforcement authority may rescind an order previously issued, even if the order has been affirmed by the hearing authority, for the record. So I think you all did have an opportunity to rescind the order, and we're hoping that you do respond to our correspondence. And again, our thoughts are that there was not reasonable notification to the responsible parties, and we were told, like on a sidebar, that the potential buyer would have to touch base with the city, and we're just sort of afraid we're going to lose the buyer if we add. I mean, we're in the process of negotiating, and the person does not have any interest in the building other than trying to purchase it, and to add an extra layer to request that the potential buyer comes before the code enforcement to adhere to some inspection rules that we weren't never made of the inspection. We were never made of what was required of the building, and to share it with the potential buyer and not with the sellers, I think we're going a little out of order. So we're just, again, contending that there was not reasonable notification to the responsible parties regarding this property. And again, we're requesting that, I mean, I do represent the buyer and the seller as the licensed broker in the state of Indiana with A-Pro Realty. And we're, again, Mr. Parrish can't be here because of work. Ms. Weems is in the hospital. Ms. Devine is at work as well. So I'm representing them as their listing associate broker for the property. So those are our comments, and hopefully someone will address us in a written form at some later date. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public expression?
Point of clarification on the inspection that was done there. That inspection was done. I just want to clarify so she understands.
It's public expression. It's the public's opportunity to address the board. You had your opportunity under matters from department heads. If you want to come up under public expression, but let me give the public the opportunity while we're on the part of the agenda that's for the public. Thanks.
I was at court across the hall at 9 a.m., so I don't know if I missed it. I wanted to know, was a bid submitted at 937 Ames?
Ames for demolition?
Yes.
937 to 41 Ames was part of the bid packet. There were 5 bids. Were you a bidder?
No.
Oh.
I bought the property in the tax sale in 2012, June.
Yeah, I actually have the file. All right. And what is your name, ma'am?
Dewana Thomas.
When did you purchase the property?
June 28, 2012.
Okay, and it came back, do you have an address for you for 5946 Holman Avenue, number
Yes.
516? How come you didn't claim the certified mail?
Because I didn't receive it. I was at work when they came and delivered it, and I never got the paper in time.
Did you get the copy that was sent regular mail?
Yes, right
Okay,
here.
so you did receive notice about it?
Yes.
Have you contacted the building department to arrange an inspection and pay a $150 inspection fee?
No.
In order to save this property, it's the same for you as everybody else. You need to contact the building commissioner, arrange for an inspection. He will tell you everything that needs to be done to make repairs to this property.
Okay.
I have pictures of the property here. It's in pretty rough shape. It's going to definitely need a new roof.
But also, when I purchased the property, I had the attorney represent me. I only purchased half of the house because it's on 2 separate pins. So I bought one half, and the other half is owned by another company.
Okay, well, whoever owns the other half is going to have to join this agreement to rehabilitate. You can't fix half a house.
Right, I know that. That's why I didn't proceed to, finish paying the old taxes on it, because there was no point in me, going forward.
The only way this property can be saved is if somebody enters a written agreement to rehabilitate and makes the repairs.
But I will have to...
Get the other half from somebody else. Maybe they'll sign it over to you.
Okay. So what do I do, just go downstairs?
Right, you're going to have to pay for an inspection. Can you get into the property legally? What half do you own? Do you own the half of the door?
I mean, it's a half a door. It's not like it's splitting. It just told me out.
You might want to talk to your attorney before you go into the property, but right now it's going to...
Ms. Thomas? It appears that you probably have some work to do with the law department here.
Okay.
So,
just go downstairs?
Upstairs.
Upstairs.
There's nothing else for the board.
Okay.
I'll let you go ahead and work that out with the law department. Is there anybody else for public expression that wishes to address the board at this time? Anybody?
Dan, I just wanted a point of clarification for Carlotta and for the board. The inspection that we did with code enforcement was in response to the police department and numerous complaints from the neighborhood that vagrants were living in the building. It was not for violations. It was not for any official notice or documentation for build or demo.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Anybody else for public expression?
So there was never,
Can we move to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.